As you can see, I got a haircut. It is way too dramatic. What is up, guys? It's Mega Man Chief Fan here. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my March halfway wrap-up video. And the reason why I didn't do it in February is because I didn't read as much in February, but I read 11 books so far in March, so that qualifies me to do at least a halfway wrap-up. So, anyway, let's get into it, but before so, I don't have that many in physical copy. I have like 4 in physical copy, and one of them is actually a library book, so oh well. So, a lot of them were from the library. A lot of them were from the library, and I just don't have them here with me. So, keep that in mind. Anyway, let's get started. The first book that I read is from the same author as The Dinner, which, if you don't know, The Dinner by Herman Koch, or Koch, however you say it, is one of my favorite books of this year so far. I read it last month and it was just fantastic. I absolutely loved it. So I decided to read this other guy's book only other book that was in English, Summer House with Swimming Pool. And at first, I was really getting into it. It wasn't as good as The Dinner, but it was like a 3.5-star read. I was really liking it. And then around like a page 100 or so, not only did it get bad, it got really bad. Like, to the point where some points I just wanted it to end. Like, I did not like the story at all at this point. And the characters were alright. That's probably the best part about this book, especially a guy named Ralph, who the main character's family goes to his Ralph's summer house, aka Summer House with Swimming Pool. Title drop. So, it's a bad book, but with some merits. And luckily, it's the only really bad book that I read this month. So, I'm happy, but still, it was pretty disappointing because I was expecting a lot more from the same man who wrote The Dinner, which is one of my favorite thriller books. But, oh well. Hopefully, we can get more Herman Koch translated into English. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about this book. The next book, I don't know how I can do this without somebody saying, oh, you got this part of it wrong. Because it is one of the most deep and not mythological, just like one of the most deep and well-written books, in some people's opinion, of all time. And it's incredibly famous. In fact, it's probably the most famous book that I read in this month. And honestly, I thought it was just okay. That is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. The one thing that I did really like in this novel throughout the entire thing was the writing and vocabulary. I will admit that the vocabulary in how Nabokov pieced the words together was brilliant. He has his way with words. However, for the story and characters, I'm going to separate this into like 2 halves. The first 2/3 and the last third. The first 2/3 I was extremely disappointed with. The story was just bland, the main characters were whiny and awful human beings, and not in a well-written format. I was just getting mad at this book, and I was thinking I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. But then came the last third, which was absolutely phenomenal. Like, seriously, if you have not read Lolita, just read it for the sake of that last third and the fact that you've read it. But it's about a man who's falling in love with this young girl because it reminds him of his lifelong love, who tragically, I don't know, it is such a deep book that you just can't get it all in one read. You have to read it multiple times, but honestly, I don't see myself getting through this book again. It had so many faults with it, so many bad things in it, that I just can't get through it to get to that amazing last third. So, is Lolita a bad book? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But, is it flawless? Not even close. I just thought it was okay. If you guys love it, that's fine, but I just wasn't the biggest fan of it. The next book is Life of Pi by Jan Martel, and yeah, I really liked it. I really liked it. It's about a man named Pi Patel who gets stranded out in the Atlantic Ocean, and or was it Pacific? I'm really sure it was Atlantic Ocean, but there's a tiger on it. Everybody knows about the fact that there's a man on a boat with a tiger. If there's one thing that people know about this book and movie, it's the fact that there's a boat with a tiger on it. Rawr! So, I liked it. It's a really thrilling story about survival, and just, like, it has all these facts, and it feels like a journal of Pi's, like, life out at sea, and it's just so greatly crafted. However, I only gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Why? Because I wasn't a fan of the first 100 pages. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I just wasn't a fan of the first 100 pages. It was just like hammering down his life so much that it just felt like it was pointless character development. It developed Pi's character, but it kind of made him a little more bland somehow. I don't know why. It just wasn't that good of character development. But is Life of Pi a good book? Definitely. Especially when you get it to the part where he's stranded at sea. It gets really great. So, Life of Pi, I would definitely recommend. The next book is from an author who a lot of people love, but I tried to read this other guy's books, and even though I really like this book, the other book I tried to read from this guy, I couldn't even get through. And that is Graham Greene, and the one book that I read from him is The Quiet American. This is about a man named Pyle who comes to France in order to fight against the Vietnamese, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it. I really... No, wait. Is it Chinese or Vietnamese? I don't know. But it was good. It was really good. I did like this one book. I liked the characters. I liked what was going on. It was a fun yet dark story. And there was a lot of great twists and turns to it, which I won't dare spoil. Because there were some moments that were legitimately really great. However, it just didn't blow me away like I feel some people think of Graham Greene. But did I like it? Yes. I know I keep saying this stuff for over and over again, but I really didn't read that many bad books besides Summer House with Swimming Pool. So, yeah. You should still read The Quiet American. I think it's on like some people's best classics you should definitely read list. Because it's Graham Greene. Most people know him. A lot of people love him. And I hope I can love him too, because so far, even though I like this book, yeah, his other books not so much. The next book is a book that I may get some eyebrows raised for liking, but it's The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I like The Bell Jar. I liked it, guys. I'm manly, I swear. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about a young woman named Esther Greenwood who is like in the spotlight. She's going on a great road, but then she starts to slowly get more insane throughout the book, and then she winds up in a mental hospital. That's pretty much the story of it. And a lot of people like to compare this book to The Catcher in the Rye. And even though I do like The Bell Jar, it's not Catcher in the Rye, guys. It's not Catcher in the Rye at all. Like, Catcher in the Rye is my favorite book of all time. It's just one of the greatest books ever written. This book, even though I like it, it's not one of the greatest books ever written. There's definitely some flaws with it, especially in the first half, but the second half gets really good, and is the reason why I give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So, The Bell Jar, is it good? Yes. The story's good, especially in the second half. I like Esther as a character, and the writing's just great. It's very poetic, you can definitely tell, because Sylvia Plath is a poet overall. This is her only novel. She just wrote a ton of poetry and then happened to write this one novel. And you can definitely show, because it has a lot of descriptive language and a lot of poetic language with that. So, I like The Bell Jar. I really liked it, actually. So, you should definitely read it, because it's good. It is really good. And the final book for the non-physical copy pile is easily the best book that I've read so far this month, and I'm going back with an old friend, Charles Dickens. Oh, my friend Dickens. I read The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. And I think it's safe to say this. I think I found my second favorite Dickens book, guys. I think I found my second favorite Dickens book. This is amazing. Easy 4.5 out of 5 stars. Easy 4.5 out of 5 stars. In fact, I'm now forcing myself to just try to find a copy of this book pretty cheap because I love this book so much. I have to get it. I have to buy it somehow. So it's pretty much about a young girl named Nell and her grandfather going on a run from a demon dwarf named Quilp as they, took a key and just ran out of a hotel. And it's pretty much a chase scene. It's kind of like, actually, it's not related to much of anything, but it's quite adventurous, and there's a lot of colorful characters that you meet along the way. And it is just so great. It is so great. Dickens' characters are just brilliant, and they light up whenever they're on page. Especially Quilp. Quilp is the most Victorian villain I could possibly ever bestow upon myself. He is, so diabolical. So villainous that you can... Is that a word? Villainous? I don't know. But, he's just so despicable that you can just like him. I am not even joking. Even though what he does is really awful, it's so over the top that you love him. And it's just... And Nell's a great character, and her grandfather's a great character, and there's a boy named Kit who's in there as well, who's really likable. It's just great. It's just great, guys. You've got to read The Old Curiosity Shop. This and Great Expectations are now my two favorite Dickens books. It emphasizes why I love literature so much. Just drop whatever you're doing and read The Old Curiosity Shop. Especially for the ending. If you don't know the ending, I won't dare spoil it. And I won't spoil it here, because even if you do know it, it's still great when you reread it. I can definitely see myself revisiting this book sometime in my life, because it's The Old Curiosity Shop, it's Dickens, and Dickens is fantastic. And then we're going to go on to my physical copy pile, which is composed of only 4 books, but one of them is a collection of books that I read 2 out of, so it's technically 5. So let's get into this with Hocus Pocus by Kurt Vonnegut. I am back with my friend Kurt. Ah, man, this is one of the weaker Vonnegut books, but I still really liked it. I still really liked it, even though it's my second least favorite Vonnegut besides... It's my least favorite Vonnegut besides Player Piano. I really wasn't that big a fan of Player Piano, but I think I'd put this on the same level as Breakfast of Champions. This is about a man named Eugene who is sent to West Point and has to fight in a war to stop the apocalypse. This is pretty much what this book is about. It's a little bit more of a satire on war. There's like a weird school prison or something like that. It's like a university that's like a prison. It's weird, but it's Vonnegut, so it's allowed. It's so odd. It's insane, but it's Vonnegut, so yeah. And I really liked it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, which is my usual rating for books, as you can obviously tell from the loads of 3.5 out of 5 star ratings in this video. But yeah, it's Kurt Vonnegut. If you know what his books are like, you'll probably like this. So yeah, Kurt Vonnegut. Woo! Alright, the next book is Kate Chopin's The Awakening. I read this in like a day. It was really good. I like this. This is another one of the classic feminist works, and it really shows because it's pretty much, you can describe this novel as a woman sitting around thinking feminist thoughts and then just having her life destroyed. That is legit the book. That is the book. Her mind rots and you just experience her mind rotting. That is all this book is, and I liked it. I really liked it. It's like borderline 4 out of 5. It was that good. But what prevents me from giving this a 4 out of 5 and just giving it a 3.5 out of 5 is that the first 40-ish pages aren't really that spectacular. When I was first starting reading this, I was kind of a little disappointed by it. I wasn't really enjoying it all that much. But then around page 50 or so, I was really getting into it. I was really liking the characters, especially our main character, Edna, who is just a mind of her own. It's great. Should you read The Awakening? Yes, it's great. What else do I have to say? And then I'm getting something out of my Fyodor Dostoevsky collection with Notes from the Underground. If it wasn't for the Old Curiosity Shop, Notes from the Underground would be my favorite book of this month so far. I really like this. It's about a nameless character who's writing notes from the underground and also telling about his life before he went underground. And pretty much his life collapsing due to poverty, and there's a whole ton of themes in there about, like, betrayal and lust, and it is just great. It made me get really interested in Dostoevsky's work. If you have not read any Dostoevsky, what are you doing? You've got to read Dostoevsky. He is one of the classic authors, and it definitely shows here, because, my goodness, Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground is short, but extremely, extremely sweet. And the final two books are collected in the Sherlock Holmes collection. Yes, I read A Study in Scarlet and The Sign of Four. And currently I'm reading The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, so you can probably expect that in the second half. So, first I'm going to talk about A Study in Scarlet. This was brilliant. This was absolutely brilliant. A Study in Scarlet is pretty much just the classic murder mystery. It's pretty much like most Sherlock Holmes stories. Sherlock and Watson find out about a murder, and then they solve it because they are great, especially Sherlock, who is the sass master. Oh, just... I understand now why people love Sherlock Holmes. I can definitely understand why people love Sherlock Holmes, because A Study in Scarlet was really good. There were so many twists and turns in here. There was a really good, like, backstory. There's a lot of great exposition, because it's the first book, so it's setting up the stage for the rest of the Sherlock Holmes series. And I loved it. I thought that A Study in Scarlet was a fantastic book. Sign of Four, however, not so much. I gave this a flat 3 out of 5 stars. It's alright, but man, compared to A Study in Scarlet, it was nowhere nearly as good. Nowhere nearly as good. I mean, sure has its great characters, like always, but the story wasn't as compelling. It's more of a robbery story than a murder mystery, which, in my opinion, a murder mystery sounds way more interesting than more of a robbery story. So, should you still read Sherlock Holmes besides these faults with The Sign of Four? Definitely, because so far, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is becoming one of my favorite short story collections of all time. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, you did good. So that was the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Tell me what you guys read so far in March, and I will probably reply because I love getting comments. So, I'm not going to drag this on any longer. I'm Mega Man Chi-Fan, and I'll see you later, guys.